Think about how we are programming our bodies to overdo it in every single way. And that does eventually show up. And so we are worthy of caring for ourselves, but we have to start where we are and do what we can. And that's the shift that I want from the traditional wellness culture that makes you feel like you're not enough if you didn't do it just right, or you didn't create the perfect hallmark reality.
Welcome to Carrie On, the show where we explore reinvention, self-discovery, and empowerment before, during, and after midlife. I'm your host, Carrie Murray. It's time to keep our head above the chaos and carry on.
Hustle culture is alive and well, and you don't need me to tell you that. It's all over social media, but it's also pretty polarizing. You're being told by every influencer that you're either not hustling hard enough or you need to stop the hustle altogether. And then there's what everyone else tells you, your family, friends, and peers, to your bottom line on what enough looks like. Here's where my next guest, Dr. Portia Preston, comes in. Her new book, Hustle, Flow, or Let It Go, is all about figuring out what the hustle costs you, where you can nurture flexibility, and what you need to release in your life to thrive. It's truly your guide to shame-free wellness. Welcome, Portia.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy to carry on with you. I just want to first start by saying I took your book to a family trip to Europe. So it was on the plane with me to Paris. It was on the plane with me to London. It was on the channel with me. And everywhere I went, I had this book. And what I loved about it is, although I was on a retreat, kind of but you're with family.
Correct.
This was a retreat. Yeah. Reading it. I was just like, I get to read. We're on the trip. I was like, let's read. And when you're like reading, this work, I have work to do. And as I'm reading it, I loved your book. Loved the parts of that were retreats, like mini retreats. You gave us little exercises to do. I want to start with, when you were creating the book, what kind of really said, I got to write this book. I got to get this out there. What was the catalyst to getting all of this great information in one flexible location that you can take anywhere?
It's the book that I needed for what I was going through.
Yeah.
And, I would do talks and people just kept saying, when's the book coming out? Because you're saying all these really great things, but where can we go to find them? And so I always wanted to sit down, and the mission was to create something that really help people feel seen. Mm-hmm. That was really important.
Yeah. And honestly, you feel seen in the letter to the reader, immediately when you start reading them up. It's an incredible journey and sharing your side of it, going through all of the diagnoses you went through, all the work that you would put into your career and everything. It's how did you even have the time to write that?
Well, I worked on it for about 5 years.
Okay.
And the very last year, we're getting to the end of the writing phase and to the editing, I was on sabbatical. So that helped a lot.
That's great. So tell the people a little bit about you. Let's hear a little backstory about what brought us here today.
Wow, what brought us here today? Well, let's see. I'm originally from South Central LA. And growing up, I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to save everybody. I wanted to be a pediatrician from the age of 5. So I think even back then, this idea of wanting to help people was just really firmly ingrained into me. And as the years went on and I switched into public health, I always wanted to be able to touch the individual still, no matter what we were doing at the population level. And I found in my own life, as I started to have these health conditions, I need to do wellness a little differently. This mainstream narrative is leaving me out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say it wasn't necessarily until I just finished my doctoral studies, where I still didn't think that stress could affect your health. I still believed that. They were telling me different, but I didn't believe it. But when I started to have health diagnoses, I've got to do this differently. And it was so difficult that I thought, I didn't want anyone else to do this so well. I'm a professor at Cal State Fullerton. I teach public health. So I talk about things like stress management and cultural humility. I also have a company called Empower to Exhale. And my vision in creating that is I wanted to create spaces where people could talk about things like anxiety and depression, things that professionals often don't talk about. So I do speaking and coaching with that. And then, of course, I'm now an author. So,
and the business route.
yes.
Love that. Love that. So, well, let's just dive right into hustle culture. So I have a list of questions here, and they're a guide, but hustle culture, has tried really hard to foster a lot of unhealthy habits in us. And I feel like for decades, we've been dealing with this. Like we hear, you got to hustle, and then you're not hustling enough. And honestly, when I hear hustle, I feel like someone is trying to, take money from me. Right. Yeah. Right. That's immediately what I went to, and never felt like hurry. But what are some of the harmful habits that form when we start to really feel we have to hustle and keep up?
Well, I would say that it's different for everyone. And it's not necessarily the act of hustling itself. It's the impact that it has on what you value the most. So, for example, in my own life, if I really enjoy working at what others would consider to be a frantic pace, and I'm focused on something, I want to get it done, there's nothing bad about that. It's bad for me when I start taking out that stress on other people. So if I'm more snappy with the people that, are working with me, or if I'm irritable with my family, if I'm being cruel to myself, if I'm using shame as a motivator, those are all warning signs for me that the hustle's out of control. So I think of the hustle as any practice that isn't sustainable, or us having to function outside of what is sustainable because we don't have the right resources or support in place.
Wow. So sustainable. That's a really, really great word. Because I know I struggle with, yes, I can recognize, and then I can start the change, but I never stick with it.
Right.
How do you recommend people sustain and not get frustrated?
You're not going to like the answer.
Okay.
Because everyone wants to get to that big goal. And I actually encourage people to start at the beginning of the process and even think about your intentions. Are you connected to what you want? Is this something that you really want? Or are you doing this because of an internalized expectation from society or your friends, or what you've been told, that a woman should have at this stage in your life? And if it's something that you sincerely want, recognize that you don't have control over all of the factors. You're going to have to constantly adjust. And so I have something I call the SANE framework.
Yes, please tell us.
Sure. So the S, SANE is insanity. So S stands for slow down and reflect. Just recognize what you are feeling right now.
Mm-hmm.
And the next part is A, acknowledge your reality. So I mean that in a couple of ways. One, your reality. Let's look at the resources and the support that you actually have. Are you bootstrapping this alone, right? But also think about your thoughts. Which of these are grounded in reality and which are not, right? That's a big one.
True. Yeah.
So once we've thought through that, navigating with intention, you start by looking at your values. What do I really care about? What do I really want to accomplish with this? How do I want to do this? What is the aroma that I want to put out into the world when I do things? Do people want to say, I smell integrity and honesty, or feel cheated when I work with you? You're very transactional, right?
Right.
And so once you've done that, I just want you to start thinking about the smallest baby steps forward and what you need for that. And let's build momentum. And then the E is to evaluate and adapt. So you're always going to get a chance to look back and say, okay, this worked well. This didn't work well. Let me do this differently. And I know that sounds like a slower pace, but it's a more intentional journey. And that's how we can kind of start to sense when things are unraveling, or they're not sustainable, or we are hustling harder than we have to because we're comparing ourselves to someone that has a vastly different reality.
Yeah. And that's kind of what leads me into what you call the spiral of shame and everything. So I feel like SANE, SANE, and kind of like the counter to that.
It is.
So that spiral, what typically in your experience triggers people to get into it?
Sure.
How do they get out?
Sure. So the shame spiral for me, there's a healthy amount of shame where you've done something and you need to take accountability and move forward. But then there's that lingering shame that's almost like this constant vigilance, where the moment that you do something, rather than looking at all the factors, you just immediately point to yourself and say, I'm a bad thing, right? I shouldn't have this. And I like to think of that as my brain trying to get an immediate answer. And so it's going to get that one little flash of relief, but I'm going to carry the shame narrative for what? Days, weeks, months, or years?
Wow.
So if I take a moment and I look at it, I just realize shame isn't the best fuel. It's just the most easily accessible. because we've internalized it for so long. So my goal when I say shame-free isn't that you're never going to feel shame. It's that you develop strategies to deal with the shame. So sometimes the answer is to be compassionate towards yourself, but sometimes we can't do that. And so what we need is community-activated compassion. Other people that care for us and will see us as human and will help us to.
Yeah. Do you see this with men? Or do you mostly?
I do.
Yeah.
Any human being.
Okay.
I think of us all as dealing with shame. We're carrying a football in different positions. And so we're contorted in different ways. And we are all trying to hide that vulnerability from each other. What happens with men is that they hide it differently. And the way in which they hide it makes them believe they don't have it, right? And so for women, we're so publicly shamed for things. That there's that, okay, you can see this above the surface, whereas for men, it's very much beneath the surface. But if they're in a space where there's trust and they know they're not going to be mocked for it and it's safe for them, yeah, they can get to that point where they confront that, because the truth is, for a lot of them at a very young age, they were told to put that away.
Yeah.
And to not utilize that anymore.
Yeah. Be a big boy.
Correct.
Men don't cry.
Exactly.
Yeah. I know for women, I feel like we enter a room and we're immediately said, oh, yeah, she's going to have to work harder than anybody else. She's going to have to do this because she's the one woman, the one Black woman, maybe say, in a room and everything. And it's like, I know when I've walked in a room with all women, I'm just like, oh, I have to work, or all men, I have to work so much harder than anyone in here. And then once I started my graduate program and I walked with a room of all teachers, primarily all women, I felt equal. Do you see that with people when it comes to like their identity and how they're dealing with shame?
Entrepreneurs, listen up. Are you stuck trying to DIY your website and marketing only to end up frustrated and spinning your wheels? Stacy Beeman of Bee Woman Marketing gets it. She helps passionate business owners like you ditch the overwhelm and go back to your zone of genius. From strategic websites and automated marketing systems to branding, logo design, messaging, and social media strategy, she handles it all. Stacy has supported coaches, consultants, nonprofits, authors, educators, and your girl, Carrie Murray. So stop Googling how to embed a form or set up an email funnel and start growing your business. Visit bewomanmarketing.com and mention Carrie On, and you get 10% off of a strategy session with Stacy. Ready for TED is an 8-week program led by my friend, Tony Purry. She's a PR pro, executive media trainer, and yep, a TEDx speaker herself, who, by the way, was a guest right here on Carrie On, episode number 2. This guided experience is built just for women ready to clarify their message and craft a signature talk and share their big idea. Whether you're an expert, founder, or change maker, you'll expand your influence, raise awareness, and gain unshakable credibility when you hit the red circle. I've seen firsthand how Tony supports women through this process. It's remarkable. Spots are super limited. Apply now at readyforted.com and let Tony be your guide on the global stage.
I think I'll be a little bit more pessimistic, which surprises you, perhaps.
Maybe.
Even in a room of women, the same thing is possible because of the power dynamic.
True.
Right.
Even the competitiveness. Yeah. I didn't think about that.
And so if you have a belief that only you can be on top, you're still going to find a way to oppress everyone around you.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I think of and I carry as a Black woman is it's not even a matter of working twice as hard. I could work infinitely as hard. And if you're going to carry that opinion that I'm not enough, that's going to always be your opinion. My job is to see myself first, right?
Right.
And so I constantly have to be working on that narrative of worth, which is why the first thing that I talk about in the book is establishing your worth and how no one can give or take it away, because we know that terrible things are going to be said about us. And if we can't get to the truth of who we are, nothing is enough.
Yeah. You'll constantly be spinning your wheels, right?
But I figured out something out that's really interesting. One of the reasons that people overwork is because they've realized that's what they will be praised for. So women are not going to be praised for rest and caring for themselves. So we are disciplined to overfunction in the one area that will receive validation.
Right.
Maybe.
And then Black women also live shorter lives.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a real thing. There's been research and our telomeres are shorter, and what happens is there's this biological wearing or it's wear and tear. I think they call it weathering.
Yeah.
And we are going through different stressors, seen and unseen, without the resources and support that we need.
Mm-hmm.
And so where it shows up is you can have a Black woman who has access to all of the different resources you think you would need to be healthy, and she still struggles with poor maternal health outcomes because no level of education or income is going to get her
where she needs to be.
Well, it's not going to insulate her, right? It's almost like there's a stressor in the environment that just seeps through our walls. And so our work is going to be ongoing for a while to continue to name this as real and to take the appropriate steps to address it. But I think it starts with just listening to people and believing their narratives of their experiences.
Yeah.
And not looking through our own eyes and thinking, well, I have this lived experience, so it must be the same for you.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay. So I want to switch a little bit to neurodivergence.
Yes.
First, tell the people if they don't know, what is that exactly?
Oh my goodness. I want to let you define it.
Well, I have a neurodivergent child, so I'm very aware of what it means. And I'll be honest, I've only been a parent for 18 years and I was a teacher for 15 years. I didn't have a lot of kids who weren't neurodivergent. Like, it was kind of like, well, are you okay? So as a teacher, I was surrounded by it. So for me, it was just like, oh, I can recognize, you're autistic. You need this, or closer to itchy. Like, I get it, and I knew how to accommodate that. But I feel like all of a sudden, especially an adult diagnosis with autism and ADHD and ADHD.
Yeah.
I knew I was going to get it wrong. ADHD diagnosis is becoming more prevalent. And with the onset of social media, when you got your diagnosis, how did you feel? Like, did you feel seen? Did you feel like, well, where have you been? Have I been dealing with this my whole life?
Okay, so I'll start with the definition of neurodivergent. And I was nervous to do it because I don't think anyone can do it justice. But I think what the important thing is to know that we are all distinct and unique. And so what is this idea of neurotypical? But neurodivergent usually pertains to a subset of, symptoms that people have named to be different, unfortunately, disorders, which implies a norm, right? And so it also includes some mental health disorders. And the common factor across all of these are that there's a difference in how your brain functions. There's a difference in how you think, process, learn information.
Yeah.
Right. And there's such a wide spectrum. You go from people who need, very specific ongoing supports in their everyday lives. And then you have people that are almost masked the idea that they're even neurodivergent. So they're not getting the support that they need. And that's kind of where I fell into.
Okay.
So I had no clue that I was neurodivergent. I think it was coined as a term the year I finished high school. So we were just called gifted. Right. And that's not to imply that everybody that's gifted is neurodivergent, but there's a huge
correlation between that.
Yeah. And what I've come to find out is that there are some areas in which we are very highly developed, and there's other areas in which we are underdeveloped. And so when I was constantly being told that I talked too much when I was a kid, I didn't know how not to. I was regulating in the best way that I knew how. And what a shift to go from seeing this as an intentional, willful display of behavior to this child doesn't even know what they're dealing with and they're doing their best. There's just so much space for it, right? So the ADHD I kind of caught wind of because everyone was talking about it. And I went, wow, that sounds mighty like my life.
Right.
The autism didn't become clear to me until I went through what I thought was a depression, started treating my ADHD. And then that allowed the autism symptoms to really poke through.
Gotcha.
And at first I went, I can't be autistic because my thought of it was really, the more severe end of the spectrum. I was super conscious of not wanting to take up space when I had so much, right? I didn't want to confuse the narrative. And so I had a lot of internalized ableism to overcome. And I had this whole personality to unravel. I thought I was extroverted. I didn't know what, introverted really meant because I felt like, if you're not mouse quiet all the time, you don't get to say that. But it's so evident to me now in the ways that I recharge, there were always social issues for me. People not understanding my intent, me not understanding cues and conversation. And so when we actually went through the assessment, I met 5 of the 6 criteria.
Oh, wow.
Which is wild.
Okay.
And so I kind of had to go home and unpack that.
Yeah.
And you just start to look at your life and you go, wait, is that what that was? Is that what that was? And it's like such a cool experience when you talk to other people, because we're all going through that and we help each other to process it. And then I think you get to this point where you realize, well, there's not a medication that's going to make this go away, but it's also not this superpower. It is disabling. Getting to a point where you can name that.
Yeah.
You know, it really helped me because I began to realize, okay, what I'm perceiving as flaws are actually needs for support. They are a part of me and I deserve to have support for them. So I find now that being in the roles that I am, when I'm advocating for myself, I'm actually advocating for a lot of people.
Yes.
And I want to make sure that I continue to highlight other narratives, but I feel grateful that that is a positive outcome of what I'm dealing with. But at the immediate time, verklempt, just a lot of different emotions. Yeah, if you're happy, you're sad, you're bewildered.
And then were you able to work through it? Did you see different? Are you still working through it?
You know,
Yeah.
just sit down for a day or two and you figure it out. You know, every day. There's so much I don't understand. There's so much I can't explain to people. And when I'm told that I'm masking, I want people to know I'm not doing that intentionally.
Yeah.
And if you look at the intersectional experience of being a Black woman and being neurodivergent, there are things that we were socialized out of to keep us safe. So we don't stem in the same way. All of my stems are hidden. You will not know how I'm stemming right now.
I don't.
Do you want to know?
Yeah.
Okay. Look at my right hand. Do you feel it's kind of hanging on for dear life?
Yeah.
I need pressure.
Gotcha.
Something has to be crossed or something has to have pressure for me to feel safe.
Okay.
But because of all the environments that I've been in throughout the years, I just learned really quiet ways to stem.
Who taught you that?
No one.
Wow.
Right. And so you imagine what these kids are going through.
Yeah.
They're working so much harder than anybody realizes. And as a woman, I think that part of the late diagnosis has to do with women being understudied, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Black people, other BIPOC people being understudied, but also we're changing. And so some of the math is just falling off. And now you say, oh, I can't pretend anymore. I just have to accept that my clothes really have to be comfortable.
Yeah.
And I went through my closet and I redid it by sensory feel, which is cool.
That's actually a great idea for anybody out there that's a closet designer. I don't know, a clothing designer.
Hit me up. You want to put that in your bag.
Yeah.
Because if you can get a client to like feel and respond, you know, it makes dressing so much easier if your textures feel safe.
Yeah.
And if you're not comfortable wearing certain colors, it doesn't matter what the color wheel tells you. So I've actually picked out colors that I feel pretty safe in. And ironically, they're like the top that you're wearing, they're that color. And then navy blue, which is a lot of the decoration for my website. So rose gold makes me feel comfortable. So I've really spent a lot of time in the book talking about environment.
Yes.
Because all of the senses are really important in grounding me.
Yeah. And environment, but also sounds.
Well, that's part of the environment.
Yeah, right.
To me, yeah.
When you would talk about, the sensory of sound, everything coming in at different levels, which may sound like white noise. Some is blaringly loud to others.
That's interesting. One of the things I find most interesting about this experience is that you can have two people that have the same diagnosis and they have vastly different experiences.
100%.
So I don't tend to hear, someone can hear the refrigerator running right now. Yeah. Right? I'm not one of those people.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people.
Yeah.
But if I was in a restaurant with you, I actually have special headphones to put on so that I can pay attention to your conversation and not hear them fiddling with plates in the back. So in my work as a speaker, I actually have to be mindful of these things so that when I go into an environment that's unknown to me, I can function. And I think that is a big lift for leaders to understand you're not going to be able to lead effectively until you can sit down and figure out what your needs are and start finding ways to have them met. So it kind of ties into this whole idea of hustling through. This is not something that you hustle through.
Yeah, you have to take care of these needs.
So these are the needs that you need to meet to flow.
Yes.
So Oprah calls. Gail wants you on her couch. I'll see you in 2 days, Portia. You're like, cool. What's in your speaker suitcase to get you ready to be with Gail?
I will clear out my schedule for the next 2 days.
Okay.
Because I already know where that falls on my priority list. Right. Reschedule everything. I will pack my wrap that is super comfortable for cross-country flights.
Okay.
But also doubles as a beautiful pashmina.
What color is it?
I have several.
Okay.
But I have a couple of themes. I have like a navy blue and tan, which is like a coastal vibe. And then I have like a pink and a gray. I am probably going to either pick out a new outfit or wear something that's really comfortable and impressive for my current collection. And then I'm going to think about comfortable shoes because it's New York City.
True.
Next, I'm carrying 3 pairs of headphones.
Okay.
1 for sleep, 2 per day.
Chargers.
Absolutely.
Just curious. You pack.
Oh, and things to ground me. So eye brush, crystals, things like that.
Gotcha. Yeah. And do you use essential oils? And, oils can definitely help ground me a lot.
Yes, I tend to have a few things just kind of laying around if I'm at home and I let myself pick whatever I need to. But when I'm traveling in a hotel, I have a system to make me feel at home within 10 minutes of arrival.
Get it.
So whether it's like a portable diffuser or a dry brush or an acupressure mat, I have something that I'm going to lay out. And I know that no matter what I go through in that city in that day, I'm going to be able to come home and take the city off of me.
Love it.
Yeah.
You hear that, Gail?
I'm ready.
Okay. So later in life, autism and neurodivergent diagnosis are something that, we're seeing more and more of. Do you feel like it's become a word, neurodivergent, that's getting kind of like overused, like organic, or, sustainable, like, I feel like sometimes these words get trendy because of influencers at social media and hashtag neurodivergent.
Right.
Do you think we're headed down that path with that?
Well, you know the saying, if you can't beat them, join them. Yeah. Pick your battles. That's where I am with all of this.
Okay.
Because I use words like wellness and people say that's terrible. And I use words like self-care and people say that's terrible. And I'm like, well, you kind of can't have a collective if the self is broken. So they're just different. And so whatever trends they have, I'm going to continue to use what I do. So I'd like to talk about neuro-inclusive these days, because what I believe is a lot of the accommodations that we make for people who are neurodivergent end up benefiting everyone the same way that text messages really benefited everyone, not just those that were hard of hearing. So if I have the chance to, I really like to talk about inclusive wellness because it wraps up so much of what I talk about. But again, I don't control the zeitgeist. So I'm going to ride whatever way they have and, make sure it ties back to what I'm working on.
I got it. And I think that's really important. I know when I was in my teaching credential program, and this is like early 2000s, they would talk about creating an inclusive environment for neurodivergent students. And also don't speak English. We're also highly gifted, reading 3 grade levels ahead of you. And then we would be like, well, wouldn't these accommodations work well for everybody if I had it in larger print, if I give it to them bite-sized pieces? So you're absolutely true. And it's really, you really see children who are struggling with being diagnosed, struggling with puberty and all of the struggle. And that's where the anxiety and depression comes from and everything. And then once they kind of get those accommodations and diagnosis, that's when I felt like they're seen. It's almost like we needed that diagnosis for them to even start to be okay with the fact that, we have to accommodate them. It's like, how do we get there without having to have a doctor give you the,
right. I think that's the important part right now, because that's actually a very complex decision these days. It is a very personal decision whether or not you go through diagnosis and who you share that with. So in my work, what I tend to do is I will teach people about executive function, and I will teach them about, brain fog, and let's just deal with the symptoms. If this is something that you're feeling, here are different ways that we can walk through that. And that's how I get to serve everybody. However, if our funding is tied to certain things, it's really important that we catch everyone. I don't know if getting diagnosed earlier would have been beneficial to my path. And the reason I say that is because I was plucked onto the gifted track. And I was very aware, even as a child, that I was getting access to opportunities everybody wasn't. And so I know the issue with that, right? But I wonder, on the other hand, if I had been diagnosed, would I have been limited, right? So I think we have to work on the problem from both sides. And I think that what really helps is when we look at children as unique entities and we look at the resources of that community and we look at what is available, how do things work, now how do we make that work for as many children as possible.
Yeah. So they can also have flow and let go, and their little brains are hustling. They're just like, I can't sit down. And I also, we want to have these in-depth conversations,
But what I find works really well for me with them is to just listen to them.
Yeah.
Well, I was actually sitting with teacher artists from the LA Chamber Orchestra like a week or two ago. And we were talking about the students they're going to be meeting. And I said, why don't we meet them where they are? Why don't we get them talking about their music? And then we can start to break down where the beats come from and all of these things, And it's just like, we have to think about, how was I taught? And is there a different way to turn that around? So I want that kid who talks a lot to learn how to let their mind run free, but also to journal, right? So there's a place to put that.
Or a voice memo.
Right. So I think that, helping them to see there's no flaw here. We may not be where we are in terms of giving you what you need, but we want to connect. Right. I think when, in my experience, they feel heard and that we want to connect with them, even if they don't want to say anything, the trick is to give them choices.
Yeah.
So if they're not going to raise their hands, just say, okay, well, if you had options 1, 2, 3, or 4, which one would you go for?
Love that.
Yeah.
So how do you see hustle culture specifically impacting women today?
Well, I've been thinking about this, and the specific context that I've been thinking about recently is how women leave the workforce because they're not supported. And it's because they're expected to be the catch-all for everything in their family. So whether they're caring for children or they're caring for older members of their family, right, elder caregiving, or they're bridging a gap in the community, then they enter a work environment that doesn't see them and doesn't give them the support that they need. I think the hustle is magnified. And I think we very much need to pay attention to and document how things are shifting right now so that we almost have breadcrumbs.
Yeah.
But we ask ourselves, wait, what do we want to go back to? How can we re-envision? Because the foundational piece has to be equity, right?
Yeah.
And so if that foundational piece is inequity, then the system is going to thrive off of inequity. And I think that is what is distorting the hustle. But I want people to know, and I say this in the book, if you were to take everything that women typically do in the home and outsource it, you would end up with a bloated CEO salary. Yeah. So it says something that we just go, you know what? We're just going to not compensate that at all. Right?
Can a caregiver work at a capacity where it doesn't feel like hustle?
I think the answer might be no sometimes.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the need is so great and they know if I don't show up in this way, this person is leaning on me. However, what I want them to know is if you break, they do too.
Yes.
And so I want you to know there are systemic factors that we need to address to make it better for you. But today, can we offer you something that will help you, right? And so that's why I always talk about working at the individual and the collective level. And the best thing we can do is connect people so they know that they're not alone in their experiences. So I think we do what we can with what we have, but we will never have a one-size-fits-all solution because the need is so great. And sometimes the people who are willing to step up are few.
Very few. And find me a caregiver that'll say, no, I can't do that. They don't exist. They're always going to take on more. They're always going to, and it's like
because what happens if you say no?
Oh, they're right. Yeah. That's like, oh no,
everything might fall apart.
But I disappointed in it. And then there's the shame, right?
But I think you find out where you can choose your battles, right?
Yeah.
Where can I say no, right? There is, I can't remember the specific context for this, but I know for a certain condition, the nurses say we can tell who the patient is coming in just based on the relational dynamic. It's the person that's eager to be pleased, very nice, and is doing everything for everyone. So I know this is a depressing thought, but just out of awareness, think about how we are programming our bodies to overdo it in every single way. And that does eventually show up. And so we are worthy of caring for ourselves, but we have to start where we are and do what we can. And that's the shift that I want from the traditional wellness culture that makes you feel like you're not enough if you didn't do it just right, or you didn't create the perfect hallmark reality, right?
Oh, yeah. It is it's a huge shift. And I wonder if it's cultural. Is it very American? You know, I just spent in Paris and Spain, and they're taking naps in the middle of the day.
I know, it's so fair.
They live, but they're smoking. I mean, I guess.
And you know, honestly, I've been studying those cultures, and there's a bit of nuance there. So in Spain, they're actually still working late into the night.
That's true. Yeah.
So it's not perfect. There are some spots in Italy that are still holding out the good fight. And you know, there's really cool terminology everywhere. But the thing about American culture is that we're really based on individualism, but that individualism rests upon a collective infrastructure. And if that infrastructure is broken, there's no individual. That's what we have to come to realize.
Yeah. So is it a myth? Is it attainable to have flow and to let it go? Or do we have to experience the hustle, or can we just flow?
Well, I don't know where you go to do that, but I want to go to there.
Yeah.
I think that you introduce flow. And so each day when I get up, I think, can I put a little goodness into the world? And can I imagine there's one other person that's putting goodness into the world? And that's what I use to get me through. So I'm always thinking about, how can I harness a moment of joy? Where can I put laughter in? So I'm always trying to introduce flow to my life, even when it's very hard.
Yeah.
And when something happens that's very difficult, I know I have to let things go. But if I know what I prioritize most, I can be selective about what I let go. So it's really about navigating the hustle instead of trying to get to this Zen mythical state that requires everyone in the world to cooperate.
Right. Which is, you can't control.
There you go.
Very true. Any final thoughts, advice, words?
Sure.
You want to share with everyone watching?
The most important thing I can tell anyone is that you are worthy, period. If you can start with just that, you are worthy, period. And we will sort out the rest.
Cry a little bit. That's what you thought. That was very short and simple. And it's like and we don't think that we are, especially women.
But, you know, the book, that's why it's little small doses, 5 pages, because I just want to take you on little adventures where you can start to see, this voice isn't me. This is society. This is culture. This is what I've been told. And who I actually am is enough. And all of these hard things can belong to me, and I can still be enough. And I am not the problems that I experience. And it just shifts your world. So you still have the hard days, but you actually get to have you.
Portia, that's beautiful. I do want to say, anybody who's watching this, please tell them you must find this book. It's like a choose your own adventure.
It is. That was the intention.
Yeah. Was it really? No, because I love choice. So when you would get to the end of the chapter, it would be like, you could do this mini retreat or this one or this one. And I'd be like, I'm going to do that one. And then I'm going to go to the next. I'm going to go back and do that one I didn't do. And so tell us where we can find you, all the places, and what are coming up.
So I am everywhere. Dr. Portia Preston is my socials. So DrPortiaPreston. My website is PortiaPreston.com, PortiaPreston. The book is available at all major retailers. I would love for more physical bookstores to carry it. I am on Ingram, so find me.
Thank you. Yeah, everyone go to Ingram, not Amazon. We don't need to give Jeff any.
Well, yeah. So the booksellers, if they want them in the bookstores, they're going through Ingram. But any bookseller that you like online, any bookstore, you can walk in and say, I want this book, and they can get it for you.
Love it.
And where I'm going to be, I'm in Vermont next week, actually, with New York and New England College Health Associations and Middlebury College. Going to be doing some work with their neurodiverse students and just spreading this to college health professionals.
So powerful.
And I will be continuing to look for more opportunities to engage. So if people are interested in bulk book sales or having me speak, please reach out.
Love that. And, we're dropping the breadcrumbs right now to a better flow and how to let it go. Thank you so much, Portia, for being here. I think really having me. Such a great, we could talk about this forever. But it's an only 30-minute show.
Happy to come back.
We'll do part 2. Yes. After you all do the mini retreats. So please like and comment and tell us if you have a question for Dr. Portia. We're going to pop it in the chat. We're going to follow up with her because clearly this conversation, we just barely scratched the surface.
So thank you everyone for tuning in. And as always, keep your head above the chaos and carry on. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Carry On. Be sure to find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And as always, like and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. And don't forget to keep your head above the chaos and carry on.